This letter from the Columbia Fire Chief to the Columbia Housing Authority comes after an inspection was done at Allen Benedict Court. And in it, there are nearly 24 violations that were identified, some labeled severe and lethal. Now, News 19 requested the letter through the Freedom of Information Act. And this comes a week after 2 men were found dead in separate apartments at Allen Benedict Court after reports of gas leaks. Now, there were fire code violations and property maintenance violations. The fire code violations including the presence of natural gas, carbon monoxide was detected, smoke alarms were missing, as well as fire extinguishers being out of date. Property maintenance issues include roach infestations and possible bed bugs. Some stoves were leaking gas. There were also damaged ceilings and rodent droppings. Now, the Columbia Fire Chief, Aubrey Jenkins, he expressed in the letter that due to the severity of the noted deficiencies, it's been determined that all buildings at this location are unsafe. The conditions as outlined at Allen Benedict Court constitute a clear and imminent threat to human life, safety, or health. Now, we have the full letter on our website at WLTX.com as well as our WLTX app, but we're going to continue to follow this story as it unfolds. Reporting in the studio, Loren Thomas, News 19, WLTX. There were hundreds of work orders, but only a limited amount of time to look at them. And the Columbia Housing Authority Executive Director Gilbert Walker explained during this morning's press conference that we would be able to look at maintenance records for the Allen Benedict Court and determine how many calls for service there were for gas leaks and the smell of gas.
Can you share those documents with us today?
Yeah, you can see those documents. Yeah, we'll make those documents so you can see the work orders that will call in. If they don't call work orders in, we have no way of knowing.
While we were able to look at individual work orders from last year, we were given about 40 minutes to do so. There are more than 200 housing units on the property with multiple orders per unit. When asked why the limited amount of time, we were told that other news stations requested to look at the documents too. When we returned to check them out after the other stations left, we were not allowed to go back in and look at those work orders. In the time that we did have to look over the documents, we noted 8 work orders for gas leaks or the smell of gas. These orders were for units around the Allen Benedict Court complex, including the J unit. The work orders were labeled emergency and were immediately taken care of. For some, we found that there was no actual gas leak. For others, the reason for the leak was written as gas regulator hit by lawnmower. With the time constraint, we weren't able to comb through all of those documents, but we will continue to ask to gain access to those work orders in the coming days. Reporting in Columbia, Loren Thomas, News 19, WLTX.
All right, Loren, thank you.
Jim, thank you. We have new information tonight. We are continuing to look into the Columbia Housing Authority now 2.5 months after the deaths of Calvin Witherspoon and Derek Roper at Allen Benedict Court. In our investigation, our deep dive team has focused on the management of the Housing Authority, requesting the work history of the executive director. News 19's Loren Thomas joins us now with more on what we found.
Yeah, and Darcy, we received the personnel file for Executive Director Gilbert Walker through the Freedom of Information Act, and in it, we discovered several letters of concern by Walker's former boss. For 50 years, Gilbert Walker has worked for the Columbia Housing Authority in different roles, from property manager to assistant administrator, receiving accolades along the way. But it wasn't until his role as the deputy for housing management in the early 90s that there began to be red flags in his file. Rodney Fauser, who was executive director from 1990 to 2000, wrote several letters of concern to Walker between 1991 and 97, criticizing Walker's ability to manage his staff. In 1992, Fauser wrote a letter of concern after staff under Walker failed to collect rent and complete inspections, saying there's no excuse for the apparent failure of your oversight responsibility. After a thorough investigation of why this occurred, I can only reach the conclusion that the reports necessary for you to monitor team progress were in place and you simply ignored them. Another letter from Fauser in 1997 questioned maintenance readiness in units for new residents, writing that the condition of the apartments was totally unsatisfactory. And what actions like this tell me is that you and your staff care nothing for our residents. We spoke to Fauser on the phone about his concerns at the time.
Basically, people could do things and there was no accountability. And so what you had to do was frequently sit the folks down and explain to them again, they're out of a job if they don't do it. And then when you did fire them, you got holy hell.
Despite Fauser's concerns with Walker, his annual reviews reflected a different story, positive feedback, including receiving substantially exceeds requirements for several annual reviews. When asked about Walker's performance reviews compared to the letters of concern, Fauster explained that Walker's influence in the community played a big role in his decisions, and he regrets that.
I would have to take fault too, because I put up with a lot of it, and I shouldn't have, and in retrospect, I was stupid for doing it.
Now, Gilbert Walker became executive director in January of 2000 and now is set to retire here on June 30th. But this file shows 50 years of his experience at the Columbia Housing Authority, and in it you heard those letters of concern.
Why do you think Fauster decided he wanted to speak to us today?
Well, he's been speaking to us throughout, including writing a letter last month expressing his concerns with what he has seen since the discovery of the deaths of Calvin Witherspoon and Derek Roper at Allen Benedict Court. So he's kind of said, if you want to reach out, you can. And so I reached out today and he talked.
He decided he wanted to talk. All right, Loren, thank you so much.
Ms. Dimmler, did you have sex with a student at Airport High School? With her face covered and in the arms of her husband, Dawn Dimmler walked out of the Lexington County Detention Center on a $30,000 personal recognizance bond. Over the weekend, she turned herself in at the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center in Richland County, where she was facing one of 2 charges of sexual battery with a student. In Lexington County Bond Court this morning, the 43-year-old appeared for her second charge of sexual battery with a student, which is a felony. That's when a person of direct authority has a sexual relationship with a student 18 years or older without coercion. The charges stem from accusations that Dimmler had a sexual relationship with a 19-year-old student from Airport High School during the 2016-2017 school year. The student graduated in June of last year. News 19 requested her personnel file from Lexington School District 2, and in the file, a letter from the Lexington 2 superintendent to Dimmler explains that after she was put on administrative leave on January 25th, he learned that she left voicemail messages on the cell phone of the student's parent, apologizing for her behavior. The letter to Dimmler says, "I have listened to those recordings in which you admit to blank that you were in love with her son, and in which you apologize to blank for your relationship with him." The letter goes on to say that information on her district-issued cell phone and email corroborate her admission to an inappropriate relationship with a former Airport High School student. Dimmler did not comment on the accusations. Reporting in Lexington County, Loren Thomas, News 19, WTLX. Outside of City Hall right now, where the door remains closed on this issue, Columbia leaders say they cannot comment on what happened, citing that this is an ongoing investigation. However, today we continue to ask questions as to how a 5-year-old was assaulted on the city's care. As we reported yesterday, News 19 confirmed that a 5-year-old was lured from a summer camp program at Loren Park by a 16-year-old and was assaulted. The incident happened on July 28th around 4 in the afternoon. The boy said the assault happened near the train tracks that were behind the park. Columbia police also confirmed that the assault happened. We asked why the public was not notified of the assault of a little boy at a city park. CPD said the teenager was arrested and there was no immediate threat to other kids. Meanwhile, we asked the city the same question. They tell us it's an ongoing investigation and they will not comment. That answer is not good enough. So News 19 emailed Mayor Steve Benjamin, City Manager Teresa Wilson, Senior Assistant City Manager Allison Baker, and called council members Tamika Isaac Devine, Ed McDowell, and Howard Duvall. They all said that they cannot comment and referred us back to Columbia Police, but we're going to continue to stay on top of this story until we get answers. Reporting live in Columbia outside of City Hall, Loren Thomas, News 19, WTLX. 27-year-old Demetrius Jamison was arrested by officers with the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety on April 26 of this year. Officers stopped him while patrolling an area where shots were believed to have been fired. And according to the incident report, officers noticed several large bulges in his socks. They later discovered cigar wrappers with partially consumed marijuana. So the officers began to arrest Jamison, but he started running. They then grabbed him and took him to the ground, again attempting to arrest him. The arrest report also says that Jamison headbutted Officer Cody Miles, who was assisting in the arrest. As a result of this incident, Demetrius Jamison was charged with resisting arrest, simple possession of marijuana, assault and battery 3rd degree, and assault and battery high and aggravated nature for the headbutting of Officer Miles. He was denied bond and remained in jail. That string of events was documented in multiple reports by Officer Nicholas Smoke, Officer Cody Miles, Officer Philip Martin and Corporal Justin Harris. However, Jamison's attorney, Justin Bamberg, says his client never headbutted an officer and that actions were taken to cover up what really happened. So today he held a press conference about the event.
And we're here today in part to clear his name, because that is not what happened and that is not him.
Bamberg released body camera footage of the arrest and video of the officers discussing what happened afterwards.
You going to turn around for jams on your back? Oh. You going to place on arrest? No. Hey! Come here! Hey!
Oh, get off me, man. I ain't did. Boy, I ain't did nothing, man. Get off me, man, for real, bro.
Watch out.
Nicky,
Hey, Lisa! Get off!
I'm a taser! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Put that on your back! Put that on your back! Put that on your back! Put the taser!
All right, listen. Everybody listen to me. Stop. Are you hurt? Answer me honestly. Do not lie to me. Do not bullcrap me. All right. Stand by. Are you hurt? Are you hurt? Are you hurt? All right. Give me the radio. Nobody else take it. Do you need EMS? Honestly, don't bullshit me. Anybody else? One-on-one. Come to Medford and Mills. All right, listen. And listen to me. We're only doing this one way. All right? You was assaulted, and he was assaulted. All right? 83, taser deployed.
A June 3rd memo within the Department of Public Safety was also discovered, where Lieutenant Walter Smoke writes that it's clear that the suspect never made physical contact or attempted to make contact with Officer Miles. The suspect was charged with the crime anyway, and bond was denied. Lieutenant Walter Smoke also writes that he believes Officer Miles should be immediately relieved from duty. Last week, First Circuit Solicitor David Pasco dropped the charge of assault and battery of a high and aggravated nature. That charge alone carries a 25-year sentence.
Immediately when I saw the videos and met with my assistants, immediately decided that you can't sit in jail for something where the prosecutor knows he didn't commit the crime.
Jamison did plead guilty to resisting arrest, simple possession of marijuana, and assault and battery 3rd degree, and was sentenced to time served.
What they did to him was wrong. It's inexcusable. And it's something that hopefully at the end of this process we will never see happen again.
I spoke with Chief Mike Adams on the phone, asking him about the allegations, and he says that he has asked SLED to investigate and does not want to comment further as it could jeopardize the investigation. Reporting in the studio, Loren Thomas, News 19, WTLX.